Hi guys, Sifu Ed here with a bit more of a detailed breakdown of the difference between the JKD heel kick and the Chasse Bas that comes out of box français Savate. So on the short video, what I did was demonstrated both techniques, and but on this video, what I'd like to do is break it down a little bit more and then have a look at the mechanics and why the mechanics of each of these is designed the way that it is, and then talk about the possible applications of both. So first off, JKD, by its very nature, is really built on the principle of interception. Stop the opponent at the gate before they have the opportunity to fire an attack. So that's really what the heel kick or the JKD side kick is really predicated upon. The idea is to be able to boom, launch out fast and then make an attack with the longest weapon that I have to the closest target. So under the assumption that my lead leg is my longest weapon and the opponent's forward leg is the closest target, I'd be going after that forward shin or that forward knee with his kick. So let me preface this by saying this takes a lot of skill. I'm kicking a bag. Kicking a bag's easy. If you take somebody who's running in on you like that and then try to catch them with a side kick in the knee, easier said than done. Watch a UFC. And notice when people dive in how easy it is to miss that first shot when somebody's coming in. So this is, by any stretch of the imagination, not an easy technique to apply. And you have to have an absolute backup plan, because if you miss, you slide off, you're in a compromised position. So, but that doesn't negate practicing, getting specific, and really honing the technique, as Sifu Jerry used to say, sharpening the tool so that you can utilize it. So let's take a look at the heel kick. The first criteria is being in your neutral guard stance, right lead. So I'm right side dominant, so I'm going to be kicking with my right foot forward, the most powerful weapon forward. I'm going to use a pendulum motion to initiate, which is taking my back foot, replacing the front foot. As I do that, my body's going to turn, and that's going to initiate a hip extension. But right as my back foot comes in, my front foot should be leaving the ground with only the flexion that's in my knee at this point, at which point it comes up, hits the target, and I come back into my guard stance again. So it's the hip extension that's the driving force behind this, which is a very powerful movement. Think clean or a deadlift. So it's going to give you a lot of power, and the key is matching that to speed. So it's a linear motion focusing on the flat portion of the foot, the heel, driving into the patella or the shin of the oncoming opponent. So what I want to do with this, or it could be a follow-up, let's say I do an eye jab and then I go after the knee. So if I'm coming in, I want to think of this motion. So you hear that pop? That's trying to coordinate my landing of the blow right as the bag's coming into me, so that I can reach full extension, perfect alignment, and all of my weight drops into that very single, small point of focus, which means that there's a substantial distribution of power going into a very small surface area. Hence, a lot of damage to that specific area. But obviously I have to be accurate if that's going to be the case. Now, the next one is the chasse that comes out of Savate. So there's a frontal chasse and a lateral chasse. So this is a lateral chasse or chasse lateral, which is going to be a sideways, so it's a version of a side kick. This motion, I'm going to use my left lead on this one, because fighting from a sport stance, if I'm right side dominant, I'm going to have the right hand back. But again, it could work either way. I'm going to use that same basic motion to move into it. The pendulum, I could also rock back as somebody's coming toward me, but for right now I'm going to use the pendulum. I am going to chamber on this one. so it's easier to see. But watch the motion. It's like a piston. I come up, extend, retract, and then bring it back down. So I lost my balance for a second, but you get the idea. Up, extend, retract, and then bring it back down. So the descending on the base leg is what drops your weight into it. You match that with the extension of the lead leg, time it out so you're dropping the weight for sport into the thigh. This is a stop kick, right? So it's designed to stop somebody abruptly like this as they're coming in so you can follow up. If it were geared more for self-defense, you'd be slamming down onto that knee or into that shin. So think about dislocation of the patella, the damage that ensues with that. So with this one, my leg's going to come up and then retract my limb so I can use it for multiple opportunities. Up. Now again, the sport fighting element comes into play where you're doing multiple kicks with the same leg. Self-defense, not likely. But this is a movement that you can actually pull off, especially if it's low. So the leg comes up, drive, and then pump your leg. There's also a rear chasse. It's a stomp kick, and you see those in UFCs quite a bit. So those movements are very practical, and that would get us into a discussion about the oblique kick versus the stomp kick, which is also a version of the frontal chasse and Savate as well. So again, what we're looking at from the perspective of Jeet Kune is not that one thing's better than another. There's an application that applies in one context where it doesn't in the other. You need a little bit more space for that heel kick. Right? Somebody can be up against you for the chasse. It's a chambering effect, so you can see it coming, but then that's also something for sport fighting that you can change that into a different kick. So if I peg somebody in the leg with the chasse, and I hit them, once or twice, and they get gun shy of that movement, and they start to read that movement, and they want to get their leg out of the way, I can also lift that leg up and come around for a heel kick, a revers, which is like a crescent kick or a hook kick. And when they see this motion, a lot of times people will move their leg, but their hands will drop like that, and that's where that heel kick comes in. So strategically, when it comes to kickboxing, it's one of those elusive elements in Savate that can be extremely useful in a ring-based context, but it can also be extremely effective for self-defense if that criteria of longest weapon to the closest target and no telegraphic motion, that's the big difference between these. If that isn't a necessary trait in whatever technique you're using in whatever circumstance, that's kind of the big dividing line between these. Both of them are very powerful, but that JKD heel kick, straight to the target. Fast as you can, no telegraphic motion, surprise. The chasse is again more geared towards deception, chambering, rechambering the leg. It can also be used from a relatively close distance where you can take the time to bring your leg up and then drive it down. Obviously non-telegraphic movement is better than telegraphic movement. However, I've been caught by plenty of chasses when I saw the guy lift his leg. I just wasn't fast enough to move out of the way. So 6 of one, half a dozen of another. But that's essentially the difference between the two. So we'll break down more as time passes and we go through different techniques. But one of the beauties that I find in Jeet Kune is that as long as those lines are delineated and we study arts and recognize the validity under the proper circumstance, that's the whole premise behind Jeet Kune, investigation and honest interpretation of data. So, and that may vary from person to person. And I've got a pretty strong chasse. I got big legs, but I'm also slower on Christmas when it comes to throwing that lead side kick. So if I was shooting that at somebody, it would definitely be after I caught them in the eyes with something else, because I wouldn't use it as an interception. Too risky for me. Okay, if I was use an opener, it would be an eye gouge, followed up by a lead leg hook kick, because that hook kick is going to come in more of a swinging motion, which means that I have I have more margin of error, so that I can actually land that kick in the guy's knee, even if I'm not 100% accurate with it. Gives him more chance of success. So if I shoot an eye gouge, throw a hook kick, and then I can follow up with my hands. So that lead leg round kick is what I used to open up with my kickboxing fights, because I knew I could score with it most of the time and not have to be as accurate as throwing a side kick. So again, it's everybody's individual body. From the people that I know, especially Sifu Jerry, who said that Bruce Lee, when he threw that side kick, it would light you up. And that was just his money kick. He could blister with that thing. His body was built that way, and he worked it so much that he had that capacity. My body's a little bit different. Maybe I'm just lame and don't practice enough, but I've always found that the hook kicks and the round kicks work a little bit better for me. And that's the point. Everybody's different, so you adapt based on need. All right, so that's it for today. I went a little bit over. It's 11:30 something. So I hope you guys have an awesome day, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time.